Hi. Hi, you guys. Welcome back to the Skylyla experience. Today is indeed an experience of Skylyla. Oh, man. Okay, it is June 22nd, 11:14 p.m. I don't know why I'm thinking it's evening. So I thought I would discuss grief. Where to start? Well, let's start from Thursday night. No, Thursday in the day. I was at the gym, or I think I got my period that day, so extra sensey. I was listening to some Eminem to just gather my energy. He really speaks to my soul. And I was listening to Slim Shady. And you know the part where it goes, ugh, that wasn't really it, but like, ugh, okay. It's horrible singing out loud without the music in the background. And it instantly brought me back to this one memory in my kitchen with my sister and my cousin Alexandre, and we were listening to it. And Alexandre and I made that like sound when the part of the song came. And Tasha had thought literally for our whole lives, or whenever the song came out, that I was just making that sound. She didn't realize it was actually in the song, like a part of the song. And I was there, so she backed me up, and then we were just giggling and laughing because it's like, no, it's part of the song. And then we kept listening to that part, and so I was at the gym and I was laughing. I was like, oh my god, what an unexpected funny memory. This is so pleasant. And that was that. All was well. Went on with my day. Then Thursday night, as I was laying in bed, I remembered that little memory in the morning and how I was laughing at the gym to myself, and I was like, oh, that was such a pleasant memory. I miss her so much. Like, just that was really nice. And that was it. I was enjoying the moment. And then it hit me like a brick wall. It's not even like I'm thinking sad thoughts and then it hits. It's just like it hits and then I think sad thoughts. If that's how, I don't know, like it just, like that one hit so hard. I call it a grief attack because I don't know if I've had a panic attack, but I feel like it's the same thing or similar, where like you're just trying to breathe. Like you're just trying to calm your nervous system. I almost black out a little bit, where it's like there's no other thoughts except that you're just trying to like breathe. But then you catch yourself, but then the thoughts are there, and then it's like it just hits, and it's this little vicious cycle, and it's like, holy shit, I don't really know what to do in this moment, because when I close my eyes I just see scenes of like the hospital or that weekend, and then it was like I can't close my eyes, but like I need to calm down. And then I realized maybe I have a little PTSD from it. I didn't think so. I mean, I do kind of think so, but only in that moment, Thursday night, did I realize like I was actually getting flashbacks, like uncontrollably flashbacks, just hitting me with emotion. God, it was so intense. I'm just like, where did this come from? I know, okay, I'm also on my period, so my emotional system is a little bit understaffed, if you'd say. So that was that. So I laid there trying to like think myself out of it or breathe through, just whatever, embrace it through the moment for like an hour. And I debated calling a friend or my family for like half an hour, maybe 40, honestly, quite some time. And I find I always debate calling someone. And that was one thing I wanted to talk about today and I've thought about it before, and like I've worked through it, because I find it literally sometimes hours go by and I'm like, should I call my mom? No. Call her. Yeah, call her. No, don't call her. Like, wait till you stop crying. And then it's like, but you're not going to stop crying. Like, you'll stop crying when you call them, or my sister, or I have another best friend that is my go-to for grief, or just anything really. And I'm forever grateful for her. Shout out to Natasha. I love you so much. You're everything to me. And, but I think maybe something that I thought about, that I realized, like, why sometimes it's hard for me to call my mom or my sister when it has to do with Alexandre. Oh, I didn't mention this round because I assume everybody knows, but my cousin Alexandre passed close to 5 years ago in 2 weeks. And that's probably why it's also really heavy right now. But I find it's interesting because there's always some hesitation. One, because I don't really know what to say to these people. Like, I don't like saying I'm not okay. Like, it just doesn't feel nice. But in that moment, I'm definitely not okay. But I also don't have, like, the capacity to talk about it. And I don't like hearing people, I just don't like crying in front of others. I can, like, happily cry to myself. But, not happily, but you know what I mean. But I know talking to people always makes me feel better almost instantly. So I'm getting better at just, like, allowing myself to need support. Even my friend said that the other day. She's like, you don't really let people help you, do you? And I thought, not really. Like, I don't know why. Because I feel like I had a really great childhood. So I don't know why I feel this extreme sense of independence. Maybe it's the youngest child thing. I don't know. But back to my mom and my sister. I guess I also, like, don't want to trigger something in them, because I know it's hard for all of us. Even though that's so not accurate, and they'd be fine and totally supportive. Anyways, so I did end up calling a friend. And I felt better a little bit. I didn't actually tell him why I was calling, though. I just kind of was like, what's up? So one step at a time here, though. Eventually, maybe I'll actually tell people why I'm calling. But I just thought I had been laying there trying to work through it. And then at that point, I thought, okay, maybe I just actually kind of need, like, a bit of a distraction so I can fall asleep, because it's coming up to 2 a.m. here. And then, well, because I didn't really tell him why, he was a bit busy, so we didn't talk for too long. But so then I listened to a podcast, and it's called Grief is a Sneaky Bitch. And I thought it was the most accurate podcast title I had ever seen. To be fair, I've never looked at grief podcasts before. I just hadn't thought about it. I've read a grief book, and it's really helpful. But I didn't really want to hear the science that late at night. I kind of just, like, I don't know, wanted to have somebody make me feel better without having to talk. So that was that, and I kind of fell asleep to that podcast, and it was lovely, and it did make me feel better, because it was talking about this woman had lost her entire family and then her child, and it's like, holy shit, man. And I often think about that, and it's like I try not to play out those thoughts of losing my entire family, or at least someone in my family. And I guess I've accepted the fact that it's a possibility. And then it just makes me sad, because I'm like, damn, then I know this cycle is going to go again. It's going to take me, like, another 5 years to be okay. But we're not going there. Okay, so back to the call a friend. I've been working on giving friends the opportunity to support me. I may not know how that they could show up for me, but I do know that they really are there for you. Like, when I think about, so when I thought about calling my friend, it was like, okay, well, if roles were reversed, I would want to support them. I would love the opportunity for them to let me be there for them. So I should give that opportunity to my friends. And here I am on a podcast talking to people about it instead of really calling a friend. But I just find sometimes it's easier to speak without, because I've noticed over the years, I don't know, the people who haven't lost someone, it's kind of awkward. Like, they don't know what to say to you, and you also don't, like, I don't know, sometimes when they say stuff, it just doesn't weigh a lot, because it just, you're like, I don't know. It's just, to be so fair. Okay, now we're going to leave that one, these thoughts. Oh man, we're all over the map. Anyways. So yesterday was quite heavy. And I was super ambitious with the day. And then I came home and I kind of just cried for like 2 hours. And I thought, all right, this is it. We're just going to sit through it. And I used to, so this you can take or leave. It's up to you. I don't know how you want to choose to grieve. You never know. There's no right way. Everyone's different. I'm learning, like, reading more about it to see just, to take pieces and tools to see what I can use. But I sat with it yesterday, and it's so uncomfortable, and I was sitting with it this morning, and it really just makes me cringe, and then you can't do anything. You're like, I just don't want to do anything, but I also don't want to just lay here because it's so sad, and it's hard not to think of, like, you want to distract yourself, but you got to sit in it, and that's the constant debate I've been having lately. But I'm grateful because I used to not have that debate. It wasn't like sit through it. It was like, fuck this shit. Absolutely not. I will not be a victim. You cannot get me. I'm going to go be super productive. And I was. And I feel like I was thriving. I mean, I'm always thriving, but like killing it with productivity. Where I don't really have that drive anymore because I've shifted my perspective. And instead of saying like turning grief into anger, where I really actively used to do that, where it would hit me and then I'm like, nope, you can't get me. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to sprint. I'm going to turn this pain into greatness and be so active or productive, whatever it might be. Like the day I actually got the call that they pulled the plug, I was managing, I don't know, like 5 interns. And we had just moved offices and we were like in this smaller space. And it was summer, July 4th or July 3rd. We don't even really know because there's kind of like 2 days. I'd go with the 4th, but I mean, it must have been the 4th. And my other cousin called me and she was like, I think they're going to pull the plug. Like her other aunt just called and told me this. And I was like, okay. And then, whatever, Kev's working. It's so insane thinking about it now. And then she called me back like 20 minutes later. I didn't even leave the room. I was literally on the phone in front of these interns. And so toxic. And she's like Alexandre is dead. Like Alexandre just died. They pulled the plug. And I remember being like, okay, like, thanks for letting me know. And then I just went back to work and I didn't even leave the room. And then I guess I hung up and was like, oh, sorry, my cousin just died. And everyone looked at me just in absolute shock. And they're like, do you want to step outside? And I was like, no, that's okay. And I just kept working. I guess I was maybe subconsciously scared that if I let it get to me, then like throughout the day, if I stepped outside, there's like no coming back from that. But it's so fascinating, which is why I understand. I saw this video once about, I don't know, some politics man who was like, sorry, my wife just died. Let's, get to the questions. And then he's like, I don't know if anyone's seen that video. I'm not going to get into it, but so that's kind of how I used to be, where it was like, no, this can't get to me. I'm going to just keep on going and turn my pain into greatness and let it work for me. Now I have a slightly different perspective where I'm actually just experiencing it. And it's super uncomfortable. And it's really heavy. And there's a lot of tears and a lack of energy, which frustrates me because I just want to run and be energized every moment of my life. But then I find when you do sit through it, yeah, it's muddy and it's gross, but you can learn from it. And then it does pass. And then I do feel energized. And it's not a new appreciation of life, because I always appreciate life, but it's like a emphasized appreciation of life, of like, oh, just love every moment, even the dark moments, because that is what life is. So beautiful that we get to be here experiencing whatever we choose to experience. And I also like to believe that I kind of signed up for this life. You know, like before I reincarnated, they're like, okay, these are the lessons you're going to learn for your soul to develop. This is what's going to happen. It's going to be really painful. Are you okay? Like, do you consent to that? And it was like, yeah, I consent to the risk, whatever. That's what I'm here to experience, or the emotions. So then when I experience the stuff, I'm like, oh, right, well, I think I signed up for this. So this specific experience is helping my soul grow to another level, which is why we're here, I believe, for our souls to continue to develop. And I do believe I'm an old soul, because I was told that my entire life. And I had a meditation once, told me it was my 150th lifetime. So that's a long time of living. So sometimes when shit happens, I'm like, you know what, I'm not surprised. I'm an old soul. I would have like a harder level of life. You know what I mean? Even though life is so easy for me in the sense of survival, like I've truly been so blessed. I've never had to worry about food or shelter or anything like that. But I do think that, I mean, there's obviously people who've been through much, much, much worse, but I do feel like I get the challenge of like emotional growth. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but I forget where I was going with that point. Probably just rambling, so I felt a bit better. Because I feel like I like to turn everything into a lesson. Because I realized a few years ago, I can grow through this. But what's the point if I don't help others through it? Or maybe give them a heads up in case that time is coming. And I just think it's kind of useless to go through something if you can't help someone else through it. So that's why I share my thoughts as they are occurring, and not necessarily so planned out, because that is really how it is. Like, you don't know what's gonna hit you. And I don't think I mentioned yet, but it does, like the past couple days, really just yesterday, well, the last 48 hours, let's say, I'm like, was it this bad before? Like, is it getting worse? Like, are these waves hitting so much harder? And I don't know if it's because I'm actually letting myself sit in it. I mean, I have been for like a year now, but it's still heavy. Or do I just forget? Like, do I just forget how hard it was before? But I actually do think I was a little more numb back then. Or just would snap out of it real quick. Like, I took a lot of pride in how I could control my emotions, where if something hit me, it was like, no thank you, we're gonna move on to this one. Where now I don't try to control them. Like, I give it space, an hour or two, and then it's like, all right, then we're moving on with the day, and I will do something to move through it. We're not going to ignore it, but this isn't going to consume me. So I have noticed that whether or not they're more difficult, the intensity of these waves of grief, or equal intensity as they've always been, the duration and frequency of the waves do decrease. Where I used to, when it first happened, it was like an absolute wreck every day. And then it was just a little bit. in the mornings on the way to or from the gym, I would have a little cry. And then I noticed as more months went, it was like 5 days. Like there were a few days I didn't cry. And then there was like maybe 3 days that I did cry. And I would think, back to the day before, and I'm like, oh, this is good. This is like, yes, I'm still crying, but not as much as I was. And then it was like once a week. And then, it just kept going lower, like decreasing from there. Where before it was more of a subtle, just constant conscious awareness. Where now, and I heard on the podcast I was listening to, it was so good. It says the absence, or their absence is always present. Like the presence of their absence is always there type thing. And it's like, it's so accurate because good or bad, like the presence that she doesn't exist anymore is there. Everything's always a little bittersweet because I just realized she won't be there. Or I forget about it and I'm like, life is so good. And then I remember that I'll never get to laugh with her again. And that kind of sucks. And then I get sad that I'm like, wow, I've been getting so used to life without her. This is weird. So those are some thoughts that this little girl has. And I share when I'm in these moments because, one, they're more insightful than when I'm feeling good. Because they're just so fresh. But two, your life can be absolutely extraordinary, as I believe mine is, and you still have hard times. Allow yourself to grow through it, and if you haven't lost anyone, bless your dear soul. I pray that you do not have to experience this, but also, if you do, know that, and I know it's weird to hear it now, it is, I believe, a gift in the most messed up way. I like to tell myself that because, well, there's nothing I can do about it, so at least have a positive perspective, right? And I've learned so much, and I've grown so much from ages 23 to almost 28. Maybe I was 22. No, 10, yeah. And I just feel like I got to learn a lot of lessons at an earlier age, which I'm grateful for because I don't abuse my time here. And I'm so exceptionally grateful for every moment. And sometimes they're hard, but I'm still grateful for them. So if you can implement that feeling, then maybe you don't need to learn the lesson. Okay, I love you so much. Grief is a sneaky bitch, but makes things spicy, doesn't it? So have the best day. Whatever that might look like, even if you're crying on a couch. I love you. Know that deep in your soul. And I am here for you if you ever want to reach out. Bye.